What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my unit review and builds guide for Attuned Brigid, Edain, Midir, Duels, and Chulainn. I'll also be going over the fodder and how you can make best use of it. So let's start with Attuned Brigid, who's going to be the star of the banner. So she is a green bow archer, which is quite quick after Emblem, but she is a bit different type of nuke. So she has got Divine Ufel as her preferred weapon. This gives her -1 special cooldown, and at start of turn, if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, then she gives herself and the allies in 2 spaces the attack and speed buff, the incited status, and the order status. So incited, I guess, can be nice for just getting extra stats, but with the Lin Ring, you're not going to be moving much, so it's not the best status. And orders is actually good for just moving around, but she would have liked something like Kanto in my opinion, which would have really helped her position better after using Lin Ring. And then in the combat, if she initiates combat or if she's in 2 spaces of an ally, then she's able to get attack and speed equal to 6 plus 20% of her visible speed. So this is going to be anywhere from 17 to 18. And she also gets a lot of true damage based on total bonus status active on her and the penalty status on the foe times 5. And this can go up to max 25. And that's why using Brigid with any kind of dual strike or triangle attack unit is so good, because she has got a lot of true damage out of this weapon, and then she also has the miracle of her slot B skill to fall back upon against the hardy bearing tanks. She also has cooldown -2 preempt pulse before her first attack, so this way she's able to trigger another special on her double no matter what because of the tempo echo that she comes with. And then she has got the Omni Feud effect, which is extremely powerful for isolating the enemies and stopping the support of their allies. So if a tank is getting the Breath of Life healing, then you could just try and ignore that with your Feud effect. And you could also ignore the support of a unit like Seteth, who gives the flat damage reduction, so it is extremely helpful in Aether Raids and also in Summoner Duels. But keep in mind that the status effects that units have, like the Divine Nectar status, are still going to be working. She does have a tempo skill in Tempo Echo, which is going to be just having the tempo effect, and it gives you 50% damage reduction piercing. So this can be a good scale for some of the units, and for Brigid this definitely helps because she doesn't come with Deadeye and she doesn't even want to run that. Instead, she wants to run Curve Shot or Dragon Fang or Astra. So all of those specials do not pierce the damage reduction, and I'll be going over the best users of this in a moment. She also comes with perfect attack speed, which is going to be an upgrade of attack speed ideal, but it is only available to the infantry units, and this can overall give you +10 attack and speed in the combat, and also gives you the null follow-up, which is really helpful for freeing up your slot B from running any kind of null follow-up. And a lot of times it is not the easiest to outsource null follow-up, so this is something that a lot of modern units even lack in their kit. So this skill can be pretty helpful to them, and you do get the extra attack and speed if you meet both of the conditions with the HP threshold and being near your allies. So again, really good synergy with the Lin Ring. And then she has got her preferred slot B skill in I Remember. So at start of both player phase and enemy phase, if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, then she's going to be inflicting the closest foes and foes in 2 spaces of them with -7 speed and defense debuff, the panic status, and the sabotage status. So all of this is going to be helping her trigger the creation pulse, and panic and sabotage status are really helpful so that she could do even more damage with these debuffs. And she can also take advantage of it by gaining the foe penalty doubler status from some ally. But keep in mind that this kind of debuff is just going to be getting cleansed by Freyr, and nowadays people use Freyr even in the dark season, which is off season. But there's Rearm Layla, who's a big threat with her undefended status. So that's why even Brigid and her debuffs are going to be getting erased against Freyr, and you need to have the allies that can inflict the middle of the turn debuffs. And then for the combat, if she initiates or if she's in 2 spaces of an ally, then she debuffs the foe for -5 speed and defense. She also gets another round of true damage based on 20% of her speed, so this can help her hit really hard. And this is not going to be getting applied to the AoE specials. She also has Miracle, which is going to be once per combat, and this is extremely good because this lets her survive a lot of the hardy bearing far saviors that are there to counter Desperation effects and Emblem Lin. So Brigid is a bit different where she's able to survive these kinds of units because of having Miracle. But this is the non-Miracle status, so you'll have to watch out for the null Miracle status of Hathrin, who's commonly seen. And she does get the 7 HP healing after the combat so that she could be above 1 HP. So that way she can trigger her Miracle again. And being really fast and having null follow-up does ensure that she's not going to be dying all that easily. You just have to watch out for the null Miracle, Fatal Smoke, and also the brave attacking units who can just bring her down to 1 HP and then finish her off. And when it comes to her speed, she is extremely fast at base 48 with a super boon, and she has got 46 base attack. And with all of the true damage that she has got, she's going to be hitting extremely hard. And because she's an attuned unit, you can fodder her and she will not vanish from your barracks. Now, coming back to Tempo Echo, it is a pretty good skill, but it is not a game-breaking skill or as good as Time Pulse Echo or Null Counter Disrupt Echo, which a lot of units are going to be running, because many good units already have the damage reduction piercing in their preferred skill or in their preferred weapon a lot of times, and even many of the refines nowadays have this kind of 50% damage reduction piercing. So you don't really need the Tempo Echo that badly, but it can certainly help many of the older units and many of the units that are going to be running the arcane weapons. It is really important for you to understand how the damage reduction piercing stacking works. It does not work additively. If you run physical null follow-up with Tempo Echo, it doesn't mean that you have full damage reduction piercing. Nope, you're going to be having 75% damage reduction piercing, and if you run Resonance, then it does have a bit higher damage reduction piercing than physical and magical null follow-up, so you end up getting 80% damage reduction piercing, and there are many units that can give you the 50% damage reduction piercing status like newer Nidhogger, Marin, Halloween Asker, and of course Legendary Camilla, who pretty much brought this. So if you stack it up with Resonance and Tempo, then you get 90% damage reduction piercing. But this should not be done in my opinion, because it is going to be having diminishing returns. You're just putting all of your eggs in one basket. And the thing is, nowadays a lot of units don't have the pierceable damage reduction. A lot of their damage reduction is unpierceable and flat in nature. So stacking up so much piercing and going all in with this is not the best. And if you're running Tempo Echo, then I would suggest that instead of stacking more damage reduction piercing, you just focus on having more true damage with your slot B skill, or just getting any kind of other effect which can maybe help you in the combat, and it just does not do the same thing as damage reduction piercing of Tempo Echo. The true damage is extremely important nowadays against these kinds of flat damage reduction units, because you could have this kind of 90% damage reduction piercing and you're still going to be losing against Nidhoggers because she doesn't have pierceable damage reduction to begin with, and you need the true damage to finish her off. So one of the better users of this fodder is going to be Cyril. He is one of the counters to Marnie that a lot of people use in their arena core, as he is one of the few ranged Grail units, and he also scores well, so he needs Fatal Smoke for that, for stopping Marnie's Miracle and also her healing, and then you could just get perfect attack speed and tempo to get both of the effects, and you also ignore the guard effect that Marnie may have. And in the slot B, like I said, you could just try and focus on the true damage, and Assassin's Strike does give you true damage based on the defense of the enemy, so it does work against the bulky enemies. And for the special Curve Shot, is this going to be a lot better than Deadeye if you're going to be running Tempo Echo on any kind of archer. You can also run this on another arena unit in Panette, so she also hits really hard, and she wants to run Emblem Marthring to have a 1 cooldown gust, which she can pre-charge with her weapon and its time pulse, and then she can again trigger it on her double. So she's going to be having the double gust, and you could also run Endless Tempest so that you could get the extra movement and also the Dull effect. And the tempo effect was something she was lacking, and she would need to run this as a Sacred Seal, but now she can stack up even more offenses and run perfect attack speed for the full null follow-up. And now she has the option of running Potent 4 so that you can have a third hit There are definitely going to be other options in the future as well, and there are some extremely expensive options too. And Tempo Echo is just amazing on a lot of these healers that lack the damage reduction piercing. If they wanted to get it, then they would have to run the attack resistance way or the Wrathful Staff Sacred Seal with resonance. But now they don't really need to do it, as they could get the null follow-up out of the Slotty skill, still get the true damage out of Poetic Justice, and then charge up their special with Pulse Ploy. And if you're a healer with not as much resistance, then Time Pulse 4 or Infantry Pulse 4 can also work out. And the tempo's damage reduction and its Null Guard effect is actually really helpful with Arcane Charmer. You could also run this on any kind of brave weapon user because they are going to be appreciating the piercing out of it and also the ease of triggering specials. So if you give external 1 pulse to Heather from some other ally, then she can instantly trigger lethality because of Creation Pulse, as she is going to be inflicting the debuffs on the enemy, and she also gets to have the null follow-up out of her weapon and inflict the exposure status. So it works really well with her, and she does want Slice the Sparrow over the perfect attack speed because she already gets the null follow-up, so she might as well get the true damage. And Tempo is perfect because she can still run the Ruse skill and then stack up the offenses with her Sacred Seal. You could also run this on many of the arcane weapon users. So for example, recently we got Arcane Sly Knife, and you could just run this and the fodder of Rearm Layla and run Assassin Strike for the true damage, and we're already getting piercing out of Tempo Echo, so you could even run something like Moonbow or Ruptured Sky, and you don't need to run lethality if you don't want to run it a lot of the times. And you could also run this on many of the green mages with Arcane Truth Fire that have good enough resistance, because now instead of trying to get the damage reduction piercing from their slot B, they could run Speed Resistance Discord, use their resistance to debuff, and also get the true damage and hit much harder. Pulse Ploy also helps them pre-charge their special and then hit hard. And if you don't have Pulse Ploy, then even Creation Pulse from Brigid does work out, and a lot of arcane weapons nowadays do not have the full null follow-up or any kind of, tempo effect, so having both of these skills is useful. And you could also run this on many units that may already have a special jump, so the special jump will stack with Creation Pulse, and Shamir is a unit like that who can inflict the Sabotage debuff on the enemy, and she can use that and another debuff from an ally to trigger Dragon Fang immediately and then get the piercing out of Tempo Echo and run Speed Taker so that she can get even more true damage and also get the Speed Grade talent and stack it up. There is a bit of overlap of Null Guard of Speed Taker and Tempo, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because of all of the things that Speed Taker brings. And finally, you could also run this on many of the dragons that are going to be running Arcane Feldstone with Spiked Wall, with Dragon's Roar, so they cannot really run Lagoo's Friend with Feldstone. So that's why you could run Tempo Echo so that they can get the piercing, and it also has good synergy with the special charges of Feldstone, and it already gives you the full null follow-up. Overall, Brigid is an amazing and extremely powerful archer who is one of the best users of the Lin Ring, and she can pretty much help you in Aether Raids to not have Ymir or Fallen Maria for their miracle because she already has it, and instead you could just use any kind of dual strike or triangle attack unit, and then you could bring another support or just any other cleanup unit. So she does add the flexibility, and she can also support her allies with the debuffs, but keep in mind that we have a lot of, and I mean a lot of, Red Far Saviors, so sometimes she's going to be having trouble, so you could try and support her with someone like Ninja Lucina, who is going to be helping her tremendously with the debuffs and the future witness status, so that could be done. And I wish that the -2 preempt pulse that she has got before her follow-up attack didn't exist, because when you're using her with dual strike or triangle attack, you're not going to be able to trigger your Dragon Fang or Astra on the 4th hit, where the enemy who has Shield Fighter doesn't have any kind of damage reduction. So instead, because of the preempt pulse here, you're triggering your special on the 3rd hit, which is not the best because they still have the damage reduction. And on the 4th hit, you're a lot of times not going to be having any kind of special to help you, just kill the enemy. So that's why you're going to be needing support so that she could try and maximize her damage output. On a budget, you could try and run her with Lindring. As I've been saying, she's one of the best users of it, so you should definitely be running it. And you could run Blade Session or even Attack Speed Form as the Sacred Seal for getting the offenses. And then you could also run her with Curve Shot, and you can still keep Creation Pulse because it could act as an anti-scal effect and still let you trigger Curve Shot on the first hit. And because of the preempt pulse, even against the follow-up scowl of something like Fallen Veil, you're going to be triggering another Curve Shot. So Curve Shot is really helpful for surviving and with its damage output, but I think her best specials are probably Astra and Dragonfang because you need that kind of insane damage output to kill a lot of the Far Saviors right now. And you could run Slash the Sparrow instead of Perfect Attack Speed if you want to maximize her damage output with a dual strike or triangle attack team composition, because you get the true damage on every single hit. And as it is, we're going to be running her with Ninja Lucina, who can give you the null follow-up status, and she also gives you the exposure status on the enemy and the loud speed defense and the future witness. So all of that helps Brigid so much. So you could try and get the quad attacks, and you're going to be doing quad attacks because you're going to be extremely fast and you already have Miracle to survive. And with Ninja Lucina's Pulse, you're going to be able to trigger Astra on your first hit, and then you trigger it on your third hit. Edain is a infantry healer, and she has got Staff of Yngvi as her preferred weapon. This gives her -1 special cooldown, so she has got 2 cooldown Glitter of Light, and this does have Dazzling Staff built in it. She also has the 5-space Aerobatics Warping, which is the largest space Aerobatics Warping that we've got outside of maybe Merlinus. So this allows her to pretty much go anywhere on the map following her allies, and she gets the extra action out of her magic shield. So this does have good synergy with it, but with this kind of warping, keep in mind that you should not be running Ice Lock on her because Ice Lock is a ranged healing and she can only warp near a space of an ally and not 2 spaces. So she needs to run magic shield, and whenever she uses a rally assist or movement assist, then both herself and the ally get the empathy status, which is the status of Rune, and this can give up to max 7 stats to you. And she also gives out the Canto 1 status and the player phase guaranteed follow-up attack status. So it can help some of the units, but more often than not, empathy and Canto 1 is going to be helping a lot more. So she can provide some good support, and she already inflicts so many penalty and has the bonus status effects that it does have good synergy with the empathy status. And if she's within 3 spaces of an ally, then in the combat she can get attack and resistance equal to 20% of her resistance, and this is going to be around 16 to 18, and her true damage is also going to be based on her 20% of her resistance. But of course, healers cannot run AoE special, and she is the first healer to have the preempt pulse effect, I believe. So this allows her to trigger Glitter of Light immediately because of having Infantry Pulse 4 in her kit. So offensively, this does help, and she can just use something like a Lindring to attack from a distance and inflict the flash status with the Glitter of Light by immediately triggering it. And she also brings a new line of skill in Sway Attack Resistance. This is inheritable by all healers, and this is always going to be active in the player phase, but in the enemy phase you need to be within 3 spaces of an ally. So this can give up to like max 12 attack and resistance, and it also has Wrathful Staff built in, which is amazing to free up your slot B, and you don't even have to run the Wrathful Staff Sacred Seal. So this just means that you have to refine your staff for the dazzling effect, and then you could run some other slot B skills. So there are a lot of units that are faster, and they are going to be waiting for Sway Attack Resistance, especially a lot of the flying healers. But for many of the infantry healers, this does mean that they can now run Resonance in their slot B. And because other healers don't have the Aerobatics Warping like her, you could try and run Attack Oath Echo as the attuned skill so that they can still try and warp with the Orders effect after their extraction with Magic Shield Plus. You could also run Speed Resistance Discord that she also gives out, and with Tempo Echo you're going to be getting the Piercing. So this banner can definitely help a lot of your healers with its fodder. And you could also run Lights Restraint so that you could immediately trigger it because of Infantry Pulse 4 and then nuke it with Lindring. and a lot of cavalry healers can try and run it because they don't have many options, so they get to run Resonance in their slot B and just stack up the resistance for the ploy skill. And finally, you could even run this with Laguz Friend on your infantry healers, but this is really important. If you're going to be running Laguz Friend on them, then run Rehabilitate. You cannot run anything else because Rehabilitate is the assist which slows down your special, so your Glitter of Light becomes a 3 cooldown offensive special, which now works with Laguz Friend. And because of Pulse of Ploy and Time Pulse Echo, you're going to be able to immediately trigger Glitter of Light and get the full damage reduction piercing thanks to Laguz Friend. Overall, Edain is an amazing healer who is gonna be really offensive with her 48 base attack with a super boon, and she has got the true damage and the preempt pulse, which helps her so much, and then she gets true damage out of her slot B skill. She also gives out good support, and she might be the best magic shield user because of the insane warping range that she has got compared to any other unit. And if you're going to be building her up on a budget, then Lin Ring, like I said, is really good because you get the extraction, then you get to move and then use your Lin Ring. And because of her weapon and infantry pulse, you can immediately trigger the special, and you could just run any kind of Squad A Seal or Stillwater to just make sure that she has got more visible resistance for the Discord skill. And you could also run Pulse of Ploy from Rune, so this is a bit different support from Infantry Pulse, and you're able to inflict the enemy with the exposure and the Ploy status, and you also still get to trigger your specials immediately because of this and the weapon, and you can just run Stillwater to stack up the resistance, and you can get the piercing through Tempo Echo of Attuned Brigid. So you can run Resonance on her, but you don't really want to lose the true damage and the debuffs of the Discord skill. So I would personally just run Tempo Echo, and you could also use her in Aether Raids offense with Pass. Yeah, Pass seems like a meme, but Pass is actually pretty helpful now that we have got a lot of warp blocking skills like Higher Ground and Barricade, and Larather is pretty common. So with Pass, she's still able to warp, and after an ally has acted, she could just go there and warp and then attack the enemy. So she could be running the Ploy skill, the regular Ploy skills for the debuffs. And now that we have got the Tempo skill, she's not going to be missing out on the piercing even if she runs Pass in the slot B. Midir is a blue bow cavalier with Rampart Bow as his preferred weapon. This gives him -1 special cooldown, and at start of turn, if his HP is at or above 25%, then he inflicts on his closest foes and the foes in 2 spaces of them with the -7 speed and defense debuff, the exposure status, and the deep wound status. So inflicting deep wounds is pretty unique. Not a lot of units do that from away without, fatal smoke usage, and he also inflicts the exposure status, which is going to be helping him hit even harder with the absurd true damage that he has got. So good support, and it also helps him more so. And in the combat, he's going to be getting extra stats depending on the number of foes in 3 rows and 3 columns, centered on him times 3 added with 5, so this can go up to max 14. And he also has null debuffs, so none of the debuffs of the other units are going to be affecting him. So this does help offensively, and he also gets true damage based on the target and the number of foes in 3 spaces of the target, including the target times 8. So you just need to have 4 enemies, and then you're going to be getting 32 true damage, which is so much. And then you have got the exposure status on the enemy and Slash the Sparrow. So Midir can easily reach like 50 plus true damage. And again, because of that, he is a really solid Lin Ring user, and he could be run with Dual Strike or Triangle Attack because he can just hit so hard on every single hit with this true damage. So that is going to be the best way of utilizing him. And then he has got the 7 flat damage reduction on foes first attacks. He doesn't have null guard, special jumping, or anything like that, so the main way he's going to be standing out is by having insane true damage and also the debuffs that he can do. And he does have good offenses with 46 base attack and 47 base speed. Unfortunately, none of them have any kind of super boon, but that's still fine. He is able to hit really hard. And Slice the Sparrow is available now in the normal summon pool, and this is an amazing offensive skill. So this is a player phase skill that can give you +8 attack and speed. It also has guaranteed follow-up attack, which might seem a bit odd at first, but this pretty much acts as a pseudo half null follow-up for a lot of these flyers and cavaliers. that do not have easy access to null follow-up. So it can help them at least with, doubling against these slow units. And then you get 7 true damage, including in your AoE specials, if the number of bonus status effects on yourself is 2 or more, or if the penalty status effects on the foe is 2 or more. So that's why he has got the debuffs with deep wounds and exposure, and he also has inside speed defense. So the inside speed is decent for a lot of cavaliers, but like I said, it doesn't have the best synergy with the Lin Ring, so it's not as much in demand. But the thing is that cav units just do not have a lot of options, so I guess they have no choice but to run this many times. So he's not the kind of unit you want to take lightly, because he can easily kill you with all of the true damage that he can stack up with good support. If you want to build him up on a budget, you could just give him Emblem Marthring to have a 1 cooldown Luna, and you could run Attack Resistance Link so that he can fully buff up himself if any kind of ally uses an assist on him. So with Inside Speed Defense, he already gets the other buffs, and you could run Blade Session for the offenses, but you definitely want to give him these slot B skills that can give you some true damage, and the tier 4 version of the Fortress skills do exactly that. So you could try and run this with Deadeye, and Deadeye is going to be giving you the piercing that he lacks, and Speed Defense Fortress also gives you the 7 true damage, which is really good with his game plan, and you also get the Canto out of it. But if you want to optimize him with an Attune skill, then you can run Fortress Echo, which gives you +3 true damage, and then you run Assassin Strike instead in the slot B for the true damage and outspeed wave so that you could get the full null follow-up. And Curve Shot could also be run, and with any kind of preempt pulse support or any kind of pulse support, he's going to be able to trigger Curve Shot on his first attack and then get the damage reduction out of it, and also hit really hard with all of the true damage that we're trying to stack. Dew is the 4-star focus, and he's going to be getting demoted into the 3-star 4-star pool after this banner is over. So he's a Red Dagger infantry unit with Helping Dagger Plus, which is basically the non-seasonal version of Small Spade Plus, and this allows you to get up to +20 attack and speed, which is not bad for an unhittable dagger. It is going to be counting each instance of the number of 55 and plus attack allies and 40 and plus speed allies in 3 rows and 3 columns, and max this is going to be counting 3 allies. So not that hard to get all of the attack and speed out of it, and it also gives you the special cooldown charge +1 per attack. So if you run the Tempo Sacred Seal, you can easily trigger something like Lethality. He also gives you Speed Defense Finish 3 at 4-star, which is really good for a budget skill, and Attack Speed Gap at 5-star is also not bad, but it's definitely not worth more than the Finish skill. He does have 3 super boons, and mostly he's gonna be wanting to pick the speed boon, and if you want to ascend an asset, then attack boon is gonna be preferred. And looking at his stats, they are pretty similar to Metody and Ninja Noir. He is going to be slightly faster than them and having a bit less attack, but it's pretty much all the same thing, and he can function just as good as them, especially with the Arcane Sly Knife that we have got recently. So if you want to run him on a budget, then you could simply give him the Speed Defense Tempo Sacred Seal, which is really good with this weapon, and then you could run Guard and maybe other special like Moonbow, or really anything that you'd like. And if you want to plus and merge him, but you do not have insanely premium fodder, then you could still make it up with the Divine Codes fodder with the Ascended Fur Combat Manual, and give him the Finish, Physical Null Follow-Up, and the Oath skill. So he gets some damage reduction piercing and the full null follow-up, and also the true damage of the Finish skill, and he can definitely trigger Lethality with the Helping Dagger and special charges. But ultimately, the best weapon for him is going to be Arcane Sly Knife, as is the case with a lot of the dagger units. So with this weapon, you also get Lookout Force, which is the best dagger skill, which you should absolutely be having. So you could just try and upgrade that Divine Codes build and instead have the fodder of Rearm Layla and run Moonbow or Ruptured Sky maybe as a lower cooldown special. Emblem Lin Ring could be used, but Emblem Cigarette Ring can also work out. But when you've got Lookout Force, Emblem Lin Ring is just way better, as you already get the Canto, and you can run another Finish Sacred Seal so that you can get the true damage. And you could also try and run the fodder of Brigid, so she gives you perfect attack speed, which saves you from running Physical Null Follow-Up in the slot B, and she also gives you Tempo Echo. So this way you can run Assassin Strike for the true damage in the slot B, and then you still run Lookout Force and Arcane Sly Knife. So this way you're able to have a lot of different effects and have the true damage stacking. And you could also run Sly, Susparo, and Potent Disarm. So Sly Susparo is also available on this banner on Midir, and then Potent Disarm from Rearmed South makes it so that you can have the 3 hits. So that way you can get the true damage on every single hit and trigger Moonbow on your first and the 3rd hit. And Tempo Echo is extremely useful when you're running all of these different slot B skills, which are not physical null follow-up or speed defense tempo. And then finally, for an expensive build, he could try and use Speed Taker. So you could run Emblem Marthring with Lethality and run Time Pulse Echo. And with the special jump of Arcane Sly Knife, you're going to be able to trigger Lethality immediately, and you get the Null Guard out of Speed Taker. You can also get the Speed Great Talent and the true damage. So this way you can snowball and hit really hard with the true damage stacking, and you definitely need perfect attack speed with this kind of build with Speed Taker. Our Grandeur Battle unit out of this batch is Chulainn, and he is a sword infantry unit. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a preferred weapon. Instead, he comes with a sword version of Oswind's Lance and Campaign Blade Plus. So this can give you +5 attack and defense and up to -10 attack and defense debuff on the foe, depending on your HP. And Chulainn's HP is pretty good, so he's not going to be having much trouble with it. And it also gives you 10 HP healing after the combat. So it's a decent inheritable weapon, but there are definitely better inheritable weapons even outside of the arcane swords. He has got Wind Boost at 4-star and Speed Defense Bulwark 3 at 5-star. So this is the first time that we have got a Bulwark skill on a free-to-play unit. So this can act as a bridge fodder whenever we get Speed Defense Spiked Wall, and that is a skill that Chulainn himself is going to be liking a lot if you're going to be investing in him. So he mainly has a defense super boon, and comparing his stat spread, he is going to be kind of similar to Ogier and also Kagetsu. Kagetsu is a bit faster, whereas Chulainn is going to be having a bit more defense and a bit less resistance. And compared to the other Grail Sword units, he of course is going to be having a really tough time against Fallen Lloyd, who does have a decent preferred weapon that can give out the foe penalty doubler status. And Fallen Lloyd's stat spread is also a bit more balanced, so he can try and take the magical hits, but he doesn't get as much flat damage reduction out of Lagoo's Friend, whereas Lumera is going to be having similar offenses as Chulainn, but because she's an older unit, she doesn't have as much defense. If you're going to be building up Chulainn on a budget, then you can simply give him Speed Defense Finish 3 from 4-star Dew. This is going to be a really good budget skill, and you could just run Luna with Emblem Marthring and Speed Refine his weapon, and just run any seal that can give him more speed. And if you're going to be plus and merging him, then unfortunately there are not a lot of good skills that you could give to him from the Divine Codes. A lot of them are just outdated, like the speed-based damage reduction skills. These are just not that good anymore because of so much piercing. But I guess you still get the godlike reflexes at the same time, and you also get the finish skill. So you could get this from Severa from Divine Codes and just run attack speed oath, and Null Blade is going to be your Arcane Devourer at home. So that could also be run if you don't have that Arcane Sword. And Arcane Devourer is pretty old. I wish that we would get the 3rd Arcane Sword. I think we should be getting one in a couple of months. But until then, Doubler Sword Plus, I think, is a sword he likes having. And I do like it a bit more than Arcane Devourer because it can give you more stats, because it has got the bonus Doubler 4 built in. And it also gives you the visible attack and defense buff, and also gives that to your allies. So you could easily run Gust with this. That is going to be the better special for him, and you can try and run it with Emblem Marthring and then run a Plet skill so that you can get these special charges, and you can simply retaliate back with Gust, and you can use the fodder of Brigid. So perfect attack speed gives you the full null follow-up, and this is going to be aging well because usually nowadays the modern arcane weapons do not have null follow-up, so he is going to be able to get that. And in the slot B, he is always going to be wanting a spiked wall skill, ideally speed defense spiked wall whenever that comes out, but right now only the attack defense variant works out for him. There is a bit of overlap with spiked wall and tempo echo, but it doesn't really matter because we're running spiked wall for its flat damage reduction and its true damage, and we can get that without running Lagoo's Friend. And again, this is going to be aging well for an arcane weapon, because Lagu's Friend is not going to be working with Gust with an arcane weapon, and you still get the piercing out of the Tempo Echo. And if you want to run Arcane Devourer, then you can run Gust, but again, with any kind of arcane sword, Spiked Wall is going to be needed, so you could just stack up these stats with Distant Bonus Doubler, and also you could run Null Counter Disrupt Echo. You can run Breath of Life to get the healing with his higher defense, and when you run Gust with an arcane weapon, you can easily run the Emblem Ike Ring instead of the Emblem Marth Ring, like I did with the last build. And if you're just tired of making all of your favorite non-preferred weapons, sword infantry units into goat swords, then a bit more of a player phase build is going to be with Momentum. So with the special charges of Arcane Devourer, you're going to be able to trigger it on your follow-up attack, and on the first attack, you trigger it with Momentum and Emblem Sigurd Ring. You can also run the Oath Scale so that you have another way of jumping and attacking and getting the advantage of Momentum. And you can run the Excel Scale so that you can get some flat damage reduction along with Gust. So it can help you survive a lot of things and then double the enemy and trigger another Gust. And Tempo Echo is going to be important for it so that you can make the full use out of the special charges of Devourer and trigger Gust again, and it also gives you the piercing which you really need. Finally, if you really want to run Lagu's Friend on him no matter what, then you could try and do that with Doubler Sword Plus. Again, this is going to be the weapon which gives you a lot of stats, and stats are what you need with this kind of build. Just keep in mind that your Lagu's Friend with Gust is not going to be working with the third Arcane Sword, so you are going to be forced to run Godlike Reflexes as your special if you still want to run Lagu's Friend, and Odd Speed Wave could be run so that you could buff up your allies and yourself with the speed buff and also get the full null follow-up, and it just has good synergy with this kind of bonus doubler playstyle. And Time Pulse Echo and the special jumps of Lagu's Friend can help you trigger Gust a lot more easily. I want to thank all of my team members for their constant support, and you can click the link on the screen right now to check out my breakdown of the refines of this month, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube set boxes are about as functional as Tempo Echo on non-infantry units. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.